of never having to work again. We're picking back up with the assassination.
He doesn't have to work because he's dead.
Yeah, he doesn't have to work because he's dead. Great way to start our first podcast. People are dead. So we have the Archduke who was assassinated, and I never get to talk about like a wham bam like assassination done. Of course, this was kind of a fluke. The car had to make a 3-point turn, and so he is, that picture, very promptly captured right here, and then, as I said, kind of withers away in jail because he did have TB, about 88 pounds when he dies. But the main thing to know is that now we have all of this powder keg that's been sitting in the Balkans like Bismarck had predicted has now been lit, and we're going to see the explosion that leads us into World War I, because they have just taken out the heir to the Austrian throne who was going to let off some of that steam. Revolutionaries don't want things to go slowly and progressively. They want things to change quickly. That would have hindered their plans, and so we have the assassination here. I think we left off with the don't let your cyanide be expired. Right there is where we left off. And so, why he wasn't put to death penalty? The 3A asked me that question. I don't think you guys had. He was under 20 years old, and at that time the death penalty is not allowed for anyone under the age of 20. I think he's 19, just a little bit older than you guys when he commits this assassination. And so Russia, as we have seen, has had this trend of not doing much. They've been kind of laying low for 6 years, and we're going to see that that's going to change by this. But before that, Kaiser Wilhelm II had pledged unwavering support to Austria to help punish Serbia because of the Serbian Black Hand assassinated the Austrian heir. And so this is where we get the blank check, or what is known as the blank check. And I apologize, my bag is like sitting right in front of the smartboard, so I'm going to get that for you guys. And so this is a term that you will probably see. It kind of becomes coined for Kaiser Wilhelm II's action here. We've seen, just amazing diplomacy from Wilhelm II, and you can just add this onto his resume right there. Hope you're picking up the sarcasm. So Wilhelm II in the blank check, he's going to pretty much say, there is no limit to what I will do or spend to help you punish Serbia. And so Austria, with this backing of Wilhelm II, because Austria is Germany's BFF. They're the only ones that kind of stuck in there with Germany, as we saw, Wilhelm kind of kick Russia to the side and not renew that reinsurance. And so Austria is going to make harsh demands on Serbia by requiring Serbia to punish all forms of anti-Austrian sentiment and participate in joint judicial proceedings against anti-Austrian activity. This means that Serbia is pretty much saying, you have to give us permission to violate your sovereignty. You have to give us permission to come in and be over you. We're going to take away your freedoms. Serbia, because of Germany's backing, because of Wilhelm II's backing, is eventually going to agree to most of Austria's terms, but what they will not give in on, what is the straw that breaks the camel's back, are these judicial proceedings, which Serbia wanted, which Austria wanted to take over. The Serbians are going to say, I don't trust you to take over my judicial proceedings. I want an international tribunal at the Hague. And so Serbians have a friend, and that is whom? Do we remember who the Serbians' friend? Russia, okay? So Russia has been, not that good of a friend. They definitely haven't come in on anybody else's side, but they haven't been the best at fulfilling their friendship by, having their back. Russia is going to finally have to do something. It's been about 6 years of standing back. And so the Serbs have a friend, the Russians. So Austria, because of this, you want to know that Austria declares war on July 28th of 1914 because of Serbia not adequately meeting Austria's demands. And the only thing they didn't meet were these judicial proceedings. And so this is what Austria is going to use as an excuse. So if they've just declared war on Serbia, who else is going to be involved? Russia, okay? But Austria is thinking, yeah, right, Russia, where have you been the rest of the time? So here's the terms again of Austria's punishment of Serbia. Harsh demands is pretty much all you need to know of the terms. And that really, Serbia is going to agree to all of these but the judicial proceedings. And then on July 28th of 1914, Austria declared war on Serbia, and their BFF Russia is here right to the side. And so on July 29th, just one day later of 1914, Austria is going to be the one to make the first aggressive move. They are going to begin bombarding Belgrade, the capital of Serbia, and this represented the first military aggression of the war.
Wait, like bombard with...
Hmm?
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, bombarding.
With like...
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to start to see mobilized artillery here in just a little bit, but yeah, start bombarding. In response, Russia, for the first time that we've seen in all of these controversies coming up to World War I, is going to mobilize. It's not attacking. I do not mean that they start attacking. I meant to use the word mobilizing there. They start getting their troops. They've got a distance to go. They start getting their troops together and are mobilizing enough troops to go against Austria and Germany. France, in response to this, is going to mobilize on Germany's western border. Okay, this is exactly what Bismarck did not want. What is Germany getting ready to face? A two-front war. This is exactly what Bismarck had been trying to prevent, that Wilhelm has undone within a generation. Germany is freaking out at this point. They're like, exactly what we did not want. So, let's see. We are on page 5. Go in 9.1 note packet.
So France is mobilizing because they're allies with Russia.
Yeah, because remember they courted Russia right after Germany got out of that reinsurance thing. So we have Russia, France, and Britain. Kind of like France is like, oh, when they make up with Britain, they're like, oh, and I've been friends with this guy for a while, maybe you should meet him. And so we have France in response mobilizing because France, Britain, and Russia have seen Germany as this huge threat. Okay, so Germany's kind of freaking out. So on August 1st of 1914, Germany is going to declare war on France because of their mobilization on Germany's western border. In effect, August 3rd, then, Germany will invade Belgium. Does anybody remember where Belgium's allegiances lay?
Neutral.
Yeah, nowhere. They are neutral, okay? And so I just want you to make a note here that Belgium is neutral, and Germany's involvement of Belgium in this is going to take a little localized war and turn it into a world war by attacking Belgium to get to France.
Why
Okay.
are they attacking France?
Why are they attacking France?
Because
Because France is mobilized on the western side of Germany.
You've got the French and the Russians. The Russians have one gun per 5 soldiers. The French have a 1-to-1 soldier to
plus
gun
about a
ratio.
bajillion.
Yeah, but now they're
Yeah.
French.
But the Germans are thinking, yeah, the Germans are being kind of reactionary to France's mobilizing, and they're thinking if they attack quickly enough and get into France that this will be, and we're going to get into this Schieffelin plan, yes.
I thought Bismarck had a plan for this.
Bismarck did have a plan for this, but Bismarck's not there anymore.
The whole plan was all
Yeah.
written up, and Wilhelm was like, yeah, let's not do that.
Wilhelm II and his little, I think the military uniforms went to his head. Like, I think, like, we talked about that overcompensation for his withered arm. I think he was just like, wow, I will show you all. So,
He was like whatever, like arch high general, but he never like actually served in the military, like went through training, had formal, he wasn't.
yeah, other than the training of a ruler, no. Yeah.
Right, so
Yeah.
so as a general.
Not.
So did he have any military background?
I mean, he had military background as his family, but from everything I've read about him, he was a pretty harsh guy. He didn't make the most sound decisions. He was obsessed with the military and thought that he was a great general and military strategist because of his family line. But from anything I've been exposed to him on, I've not found a really sound military decision.
And Bismarck's background was in the army.
Yes,
And in the army,
and in being a real politique, like a planner.
But he was in the army like push-ups and.
Yeah, like formal training, conscription, yeah.
What makes a war a war? Is it like when you invade other countries?
When
World
it's
War is when all of Europe is fighting.
yeah, all of
Not
Europe is
necessarily
fighting.
All of Europe is fighting.
Well,
But then you have to think of like different imperial nations that are being held. You're drawing everybody in and the resources from everywhere. And we're going to see very
Is
quickly
there like an actual formal definition?
a formal definition, like how many countries actually have to be involved. I don't think so. I think there just has to be an alliance of two sides.
3 continents.
Seven and 3. Yeah, like that's okay. We just made up. We now say a world war must be. Well, yeah, we have defined it. What does 1B say? Did you guys say 3? How many? 7 countries, 3 continents. Okay, good definition. We're rolling with that.
Okay, so if they didn't invade, so the problem was they invaded Belgium.
Yes.
So that's like saying if somebody today invades Switzerland, we're gonna go to World War.
Well, I mean, how many different allegiances would that pull in and treaties would that break? Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what's going on in the Balkan region today is kind of scary. I'm worried. Like,
well, right. It's the same. It was
Yeah.
the same kind of thing. Right?
Yeah.
Because they annexed part of the
Yeah.
Ukraine, right? Just north of the Ukraine.
and so they're moving. Yeah.
Poland has
Mhm.
an absolute mutual defense treaty
Yes.
with the United States,
Mhm.
Britain, France, Germany. So
Yeah. I'm a little more. I've more than once looked back at Bismarck's quote, and if something bad happens, it's some damn silly thing in the Balkan. Like it's. I'm sticking with Bismarck here.
He just wants to win a world war.
He's the OVB. I mean, it's Bismarck.
He doesn't. How Hitler was like, I just want this, and then he kind of keeps on moving.
No, well, Putin wants to restore
Mhm.
the USSR, Russian
Yes.
Empire. He's got a little bit of a
It's like the Slavic brother thing. Like we should be united together. It's the same thing we're seeing here, Serbia.
right. Yeah.
Eee.
But I mean, yeah. He's
So-
just gonna run out of small countries too big. He's gonna be one back.
Right here, put a big star. Next to in effect, Germany turned a little localized war in the Balkans into a world war by attacking Belgium and France, primarily by going through Belgium to get to France. In response, France is going to declare war on Germany. At this point, we're going to see that Italy leaves the Triple Alliance and is going to try to remain neutral here. Their reasoning for this is that they said that their alliance was only defensive, not offensive. Not offensive, and so it is offensive and it's not offensive. They're going to say that the first move was made, and so that they don't have to step in if you attack somebody. They only had to step in to help defend you if someone attacked you, and so they're going to use that as a loophole to get out. Remember those terms of alliances we talked about, and then on August 4th, Britain. Is going to declare war on Germany, and it's not because of their friendship with the French or the Russian at this time. It's because they had promised in 1839 to protect Belgium's neutrality. They had promised this, and so this is the reason where we're going to see Britain step in on August 4th. I just want to put something out there. This is like the worst family feud ever, you might right here. They're all pretty much related at this point under Queen Victoria. And so this is just like the worst case episode of like Jerry Springer ever. Like, it's what I think, like when I look at that family tree and then you see who's facing off, I'm like, couldn't you guys have just like got some fried chicken and had a picnic? Like a good family reunion? This is pretty much all relatives, just side tangent there. They're all cousins. So we have our 2 opposing alliances, which is where we started. This whole shebang was with our first A with alliances. And so we have the Central Powers becomes what was the Triple Alliance. So that's Germany and Austria because they're BFFs, Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and also Bulgaria. And so those are our Central Powers now. So we have one solidified side. And then on our other side, we have the Allies, which was the Triple Entente, which is Britain, France, and Russia. Later, no spoiler alert, that will later include Japan, Italy, and the United States. The Ottoman Empire, you might want to note here, coming into the Central Powers, you would think like, oh, sick man of Europe, who gives a crap, right? But they have a serious geographic advantage right there between the Allies and the Central Powers. So that's going to be the role that we're going to see them play. You might want to write geographic advantage there next to Ottoman Empire. We're going to see that as we move in. And so we are now going to move
Central Powers is Germany, Austria, Bulgaria, the Ottomans.
and Bulgaria. Was that the end of your question?
Those are
Oh, okay. Okay, so then what was I going to say? Yep, so Western Front. Everyone, I just want to mention we haven't had a major war for about like 50 years where all of these powers are drawn in. And so we've had all these little skirmishes that we've talked about, and even so far that I've said you don't need to even know the battles of like the Crimean War. We're going to see stuff here later, which I didn't realize was going to be now. But so... little foot and mouth there. But so we haven't had anything big. So people think like this war is going to be done by Christmas. Okay, so it's August, or like there's no way this is going to last. So I just want to, and you've probably heard this in U.S. and in world history, and I'm sure it's been hammered into your head, but people went into this not thinking, because from their generation they had not really seen, most of them, a major war like this. So everyone kind of like, woo, a war, let's jump in, it's going to be over quick. There's not, I mean, like they're ready to go. There's not this hesitation of the devastation we know comes from the Great War, or that it's going to end up being World War I because there's going to be another one, okay? So just keep that in mind as we move forward. And so General Schlieffen has a plan, just like to say Schlieffen. Oh, I didn't flip my side. Does anybody want to stare at this pretty picture for a second? I hate it when I forget to do that. Everybody get that? Italy leaves. Eli, who's going old school notebook, set, leave it up there for you. It's pretty. I mean, look, they could have gone straight. The reason they don't go is we have this whole line of French that have already aligned there in Germany, though. So they're like, oh, we'll just go through Belgium. We'll go behind them. The French, you know, aren't going to realize our military strategy. And then we'll just, yeah.
You could have gone. See,
good
Germany's
Yeah.
in a really tough position because they
Yeah.
go one way to go through a
Mhm.
neutral country, they go
Yeah.
another way. They could have squeezed the whole thing into Luxembourg.
They could've
Yeah,
killed
yeah.
all the French.
Yeah, that too, right? Yeah.
Oh no, the French army! Just kill them.
Eli, we're totally not getting any viewers from France on our podcast. Dang it. They were going to be my next, like, base. You know, I was building my fame, like John Green style. Now the French are out.
French army, no French army.
Yeah, how long did it take Hitler to conquer France?
Food wasn't spoiled from the time he entered France till he was eating it at the Eiffel Tower.
He
Yeah.
walked to Paris, basically.
Yeah.
But you don't even have to fight them. All you have to do is make fun of their uniforms and they'll run away.
Oh man, I'm totally. Let's shoot for another. Let's talk up a country today. We're gonna up Mrs. T's. I don't know. Like we're usually not.
Russia.
Oh.
You're usually mean to Russia.
Okay.
In Russia, you guys have such a massive landmass.
I
I'm
feel
so
like
frustrated.
you're kind of bad. You were really stupid when you sold Alaska to us.
Oh dang! Now we ruined Russia. Somebody hang on to Belgium. Belgium, we feel really bad for you. You were neutral. There's not. Is there many people in Belgium to
Italy,
listen
let's
to
talk
me?
about Italy. The Italians. Look at that. They made a smart decision.
Smart
For
decision.
once in your life, Italians.
Next
None of it for
Next time you did a good thing.
Yes. All right.
You screw up again in 20 years.
Ah,
we'll
dang
not
it.
forgive you.
Edit right here. We're gonna keep our Italian viewers. That's comments going out at 22 minutes and. All right.
For now.
For now. All right. So. Our two opposing sides. There. Oh, I skipped two. Plus, my favorite map. Has anybody seen this map before? I don't know. I just like. It's like cool to me. I want a really big reproduction of this map in my house. Like that would be great. Yeah. I know. Like I just love the artistic, but yet, yeah. Well, we already ruined Russia, so I mean, we can talk about how scary they look right here.
Spain. Do they do it? Like, we haven't talked about Spain in forever.
I know. We really
Do they
haven't
not do
talked
anything
about
for it?
Spain. Nuh-uh. Not.
Like Rocky Ground right now. They're kind of.
Yeah, we've.
Spanish are busy killing. Well,
Yeah.
they're busy
Not
preparing
quite.
to
They're
kill
about
each
to
other.
get.
Yeah, and you know they had all this stuff going on in South America. Yeah, we're kind of keeping off our scope here. We're not too. All right, so General Schlieffen and the Schlieffen Plan. German military planned to invade France through Belgium, which they already did. We talked about. So this was part of a grander plan. It wasn't just like a quick, like, oh, let's just take a detour. So their grand plan was then that they would defeat France quickly. And 6 weeks was their estimate. by sweeping around Paris and then redeploying to the east to defeat Russia. So we'll pull our troops one way, get it over real quick and painless. It's the French, right? And then we'll redeploy our, I'm just rolling with you guys because we've already ruined it. And then we're going to pull our troops back, redeploy them to the east, and we are going to deal with and defeat Russia. We're going to see, however, that this speedy plan, I mean, that's really the best term for it, that it doesn't work. They were really basing it off speed and theory. I mean, the first go in, and you can see here, here's just another little pretty map of their little invasion of Luxembourg here and behind the French lines. But we're going to see that it may have worked if they had been able to move quickly, but we're going to have a couple battles here and some technology because we're industrialized that we need to talk about. So the Battle of Le Mans, September 1914, after the Germans came within sight of Paris, French and British forces are going to be able to push the Germans and force them back.
Wait, what forces?
British and French.
British and
French. Yeah.
you sure?
I'm sure, but
They had a lot of British.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can capitalize British there if you want. I was trying to be polite. And so this is one of the reasons the Schieffelin plan will not work. The French army is led by General Joseph Joffre. He actually gets a little bit of recognition for this, a French general, so I decided I'd pop that in there. The battle represented the end of mobility on the Western Front. And what's kind of cool about this battle is, and I didn't put a picture on here and I meant to, of the taxi cabs at this time period, they actually bring the troops in on 600 taxi cabs. But they're like the new, so they're 5 miles per hour. I'm pretty sure that if, and this is, I just picture all of these French troops, in these little 5, I can run faster than 5 miles. So yeah, I'm sorry. I should probably seek some help. I think it might be, I don't know. I'm not going to make an excuse for it.
Guy sitting at the top.
No, they're I wish I'd put the picture. We'll Google a picture in a little bit, but they're hanging off the sides of the cabs. I mean, 600 taxi cabs to bring in, packing them in. I think these taxi cabs have 9 horsepower. That's how yeah. That's a big deal at this time. So it only takes 4 days, and the Germans are going to have to retreat 60 miles. So if you want to know, they're pushed back 60 miles in 4 days. Troops are brought to the front by taxi cabs. Kind of cool. There's some cool pictures out there of it actually, the French riding in on taxi cabs. So why did the Schieffelin plan fail? Here we go. There's really 4 reasons. The Belgians' surprising resistance to Germany's invasion will slow down the German offensive. They weren't planning this. They thought Germans would just let them march right through. Also, you need to add the British in here. I don't think I listed them, but I just assumed, we knew the British would be there, needed to be there to help the French. The left of the German line failed to lure the French army into Alsace and Lorraine and destroy it. So their plan was to lure the French away and then to destroy that line. And the Russians are going to mobilize much more quickly than the Germans anticipated to the east, requiring their troops that they were going to mobilize after they defeated France to go back earlier. And so it's going to split up their troops, and they're now in Bismarck's greatest fear, a 2-front war. And so this is the end of mobility in the World War I, very quickly. What I mean by mobility is we're going to see very little gain of land and a lot of loss of life. Okay, so the worst combination you can have. So this is going to end in kind of a stalemate, loss of mobility and a great loss of life. And that the main reason for this is the use of trench warfare. Okay, so we're going to see that trenches are going to be, people are going to begin to entrench or dig in. The trenches are going to stretch from the North Sea to the Swiss border in the south. And despite these massive casualties caused by trench warfare, by not being able to make movement and some of the new technologies we're getting ready to talk about, both sides are going to make few gains in terms of gaining ground, but have massive casualty. I mean, it's just it's one of the times you just really look at what you're gaining from the loss of life, and you can't even, like, there's no equation that you can make to make it sound good. In 1916, massive casualties still, and neither side will be able to break through. If you'll put a little note here about the Battle of the Verdun and the Battle of Somme, I'm going to come back to these after I talk to you about the technology, because I think it makes more of an impact to tell you how many people died after I show you what new technologies were brought in, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with. But here's some pictures. Here's two terms that come from World War I. There's no man's land, which is the land between the trenches here. And then you also have called what's known as going over the top, and that means when you're trying to come up out of the trenches and cross no man's land to gain some land. So these are two terms that will kind of be coined here in this World War I era, as well as, I didn't put a picture on here because it makes my stomach turn, but like trench foot, because you're in these trenches and they're all wet and your feet never get dry and it becomes like, and you're very painful to walk. And you'll see a lot of pictures where soldiers are carrying other soldiers that look completely like they've not been injured in war. Usually that's because they can't walk because of trench foot. And so that's another term that kind of comes out of World War I here in trenches. I mean, just think, like, people are dead next to you, and there's rats, and there's disease, and just trench warfare is just by all means something that I would never want to have been part of or to see. We're going to come back to All Quiet on the Western Front too. Did you guys read that in World Studies or in U.S.? No? Okay. Has anybody in here read it just for like on their, okay. Yeah, about World War I. It's actually illustrates an anti-war book, but a lot of people who have read it think it's like pro-war. It's not. But one of my favorite books, I've read it several times, of course. It felt like every class I had in college about World War I, that was our reading before we got to class. Anyway, so technological advancements. We're going to come back to the Battle of Verdun, 1916, and people being entrenched. Oh, another term I didn't tell you. It's also called a lunar landscape. France is called a lunar landscape. This is where most of the fighting's going on. If you think about the surface of the moon, if you ever see the reference lunar landscape, that's kind of what they compared to what France, like blowing all these holes in it and nothing can live or survive. So it kind of looks like the surface of the moon, craters and such. All right, so technological advancements, the number one reason of casualties is going to be, pretty much things that came out of the Industrial Revolution. We've had it spread to the continent now. The machine gun, number one reason for this high number of casualties. It was first effectively used by the Germans in mowing down French and British offenses in trench warfare. I would put it's a defensive weapon, at least at this time, because if you can see here, it is way too heavy to like be offensive. Like, you're not running up on people, surprising them with a machine gun at this time. You are set in one place and you're trying to mow people down as they come at you. So it is primarily a defensive weapon at this time. We're going to see it put on to other things to make it a little more offensive. It'll later be employed by both sides, but first used by the Germans. One machine gun equaled the effectiveness of 40 men with rifles at this time. So if you can think about having 40 men lined up shooting compared to one, that kind of effectiveness. And then technology is breeded out of necessity, and so what is the answer to how to get past this machine gun fire? That is going to be tanks or artillery made mobile. Okay, so nothing like the taxi cab, that was special, but now you have the tank. It's in contrast to the cannon used in previous wars, so it's like a mobile cannon, and so we're going to see tanks develop to try to get people, because they didn't move very fast, but you could effectively move through that machine gun fire, as well as troops could, as you can see in this picture, stand behind the tanks and be kind of shielded from gunfire there. And so we're going to see that tanks could also navigate this lunar landscape, this treacherous terrain of trench warfare. And then I think like halfway through, they're like 5 miles per hour at this time, I think is what I remember it being. So not at the very beginning, very slow, but about halfway through the war, about 5 miles per hour. Next is airplanes. I almost switched the slide, and it's right here on the right. And so we're going to have airplanes brought in and starting to be used in World War I. Initial air flights consisted of pistols and rifles being fired from the plane. So can you imagine? Like, I'm just like, okay, a little scary to me. I'm not a really great flyer in the first place, and then the thought of having all of that to deal with, just that's like my two things I wouldn't combine. Anyway, mainly used for reconnaissance, like to go out and see where troops are at the beginning. But then we're going to see the first, not the first ones were really epic failures. Like they tried to put these machine guns on the planes, and you have the front propeller, and it would like shoot them off. And so then like really short flight and really bad outcome. But then we're going to see that Germans developed the first fighter plane, the Fokker, that synchronized machine guns and propellers so that it was timed so that it would not hit the propeller blade. And then you're going to be able to have machine guns on the airplanes and be able to use it more of an offensive weapon. In response, Britain and France will develop their own fighter squadrons. I just want to make a note here in Block 3, ask this question, and maybe you guys just already understand this, but I'll make it clear. Who took over the Industrial Revolution in the Second Industrial Revolution? Germany. Okay, and so they were like, I don't get why France and Britain is behind when we talked about them in the first. And I just want to clarify that they have pulled ahead because it's better to have the newer technology than to have invested all of your capital in the old. So I made a note here yesterday that, I didn't really type that in. I didn't know if I needed to. Maybe I overlooked it. So World War II is going to get much more into airplanes. Like if you're an airplane person, we're going to see it a lot more then in anti-aircraft technology. But here we have a little bit in World War I. Britons are going to use their planes to bomb Zeppelins, which we're going to talk about in just a second. Bomb Zeppelin bases in Germany. That'll be their primary use in World War I. Then we have icky stuff, poison gas. So poison gas is going to be used by the Germans early in the war, and in fact, the first time they used it, it's kind of like this. They send it out, and then they're like, oh, everybody be dead, and they like run out, and they run out into themselves because they don't understand how heavy it is compared to air, and it stays there, and so they kind of run into their own poison gas the first time that they're using it. So like really not good, good times, and then they don't realize how heavy it is, and so they realize, they're like, oh, like let's wait behind these guys. But then it settles down into the trenches because it's so heavy. And so then they're jumping into trenches that they're coming up behind, and they're dying in there too. And so not so good the first time, but they're going to use it. We're going to see that there's different forms of gas in World War I. There's tear gas, which of course, it just affects you like topically, or still not a fun experience though. Like I will never forget, like my husband was on the floor for days after tear gas. Mustard gas, and then poisonous gas. Okay, so mustard gas is going to like the body and all those. Like I don't like to put those pictures on my slides because they gross me out. Like your skin melting off you, not cool. Poison gas going to kill you inhaling. We're going to see the Allies developing a gas mask to deal with this a lot of the time, but we'll still have some devastation from poisonous gas. U-boats or Unterseeboot, submarines are initially going to be used by Germany. This is going to be submarines. Number one reason that U.S. becomes involved in the war is because submarines are going to break those kind of ancient codes of naval warfare, like where you were shooting at a dreadnought, and you were like, oh, before I do, all of the people should come on board this ship, and then we'll take your ship out, and that's going to reduce the amount of innocent casualties. Submarines, you can't do that. You can't just like pop your submarine up and say, okay, we're going to fire on you now, bring your people over, and then we're going to resubmerge. Like that's not going to work, and so this is going to be kind of some of the problems that Germany's going to end up facing, some new people entering the war, but just spoiler alert there. So submarines initially used by Germany. Again, Germany initially on all of these. It's going to have devastating effects on Allied shipping throughout the war. Britain and Russia also had submarines, so it's not like they're just lacking. They just don't have as many or quite the technology all the way up to the German submarines at this time, but we'll see that improve. The submarine is going to be used to not allow the British to have a very successful blockade against Germany for a little while. And then, like I said, it's going to break the rules of war here, and so you need to know that's going to cause a lot of anger with Germany that they're not following traditional warfare rules. And it will be the most important reason why the U.S. eventually entered the war. So, So next is our Zeppelins. Zeppelins, you've probably seen these, you're probably familiar with what they are. They are going to be mainly used, they're like a blimp, used by Germany to bomb London and other civilian targets. Eventually we're going to have exploding shells developed during World War I, which are going to be able to destroy Zeppelins in the air. But artillery was an old concept at this time, but we're going to see kind of a new form of artillery. And if this was my husband, I would kill him. Like, he develops, this is what's called the Big Bertha, and it is, you know, a new form of long-range artillery. I don't know if you know this, but the best coffee, like, makers that used to be were developed by Krupp, and they were the company that actually helped him build this. They now make coffee makers. I don't know if they're still making artillery, but coffee makers for sure. But anyway, it could shoot a 200-pound shell 24 miles, and he named it Big Bertha after his wife, whose name was Bertha. Yeah, and I've never seen a picture of her, and I don't know if, like, that was fitting, but in all accounts, I've pretty much read it was, like, an honorable thing. I would kill my, like, no, I'm not going down as, like, the big Lindsay. That is no bueno right there. And so, I don't know, maybe she was cooler than I am and had a really, yeah, big personality. That's what it is. After his wife, the Paris gun will be developed next, and it can shoot a 228-pound shell 78 miles away. Can you imagine that? Somebody shooting you 78 miles away, like, just having a fine dandy day, and then boom. First object to reach the stratosphere. So if you've never thought about this before, I mean, like, what just happened? I couldn't even see the person shooting. So these kind of become big deals. The radio at this time, I don't think I have to say much more about that. You know, wireless communication going to be used during World War I, more effective in the battlefield. The Germans will take advantage of the Russians' lack of this capability because they're not really industrialized yet. They've had railroad and stuff, but they're going to discover Russian battle plans by tapping into phone lines. Okay, so now we're going to go back to those battles that I told you we would come back to. So if you want to flip back to page 6, it's going to take me just a second, but I wanted to tell you why so many casualties. When you have this kind of new technology, you're going to see more casualties than you've ever seen in a war. So we have the Battle of Verdun in 1916. It will begin in February. Germans had sought a battle of attrition. They wanted to bleed France white, is what they said, and force it to sue for peace. Like, they wanted to, I mean, this wasn't just like, we want to win. This is like, there will be nothing of, you better hope there's somebody around to wave the white flag.
Oh, it's France. There always is.
Oh, and there we are. Again, oh well, sorry, France, we're shooting for other viewers. So, longest battle in World War I. It is going to start with a 9-hour battle that actually begins it, and it's going to continue on. France will lose 540,000 men. Germany will lose 430,000. It's the war's second bloodiest battle. We'll save the bloodiest for next. So it's going to be our second bloodiest battle of World War I. General Philippe Pétain's leadership of the French forces made him a national hero. See, I feel like we dissed him, and then I've somehow remembered to type in, like, someone that, like, I think I planned for this, and so he's going to build some acclaim in this battle. Then the Battle of the Somme will begin in July 1916, and the British and French offensive to break through the German lines. 20,000 will be killed in one day. It is the bloodiest battle of the war overall, so the Battle of the Somme is the bloodiest. Losses of men, Britain's going to lose about 420,000, France will lose about 200,000, and Germany will lose 650,000. And there will be 1 million casualties, all for, like, I think a little over 2 miles of land. That's a lot of human loss for like 2 miles. So
the British pushed the Germans back.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So basically, the Germans hopped out of their trenches,
Yeah.
hopped into the German trenches, and the Germans had to dig some new ones.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, it was pretty. Yeah. I kind of think of it like a snowball fight. Like, oh, you killed my fort, dumped into your fort, and then like but you're still like in the same little section.
Right.
I mean, it's a crazy amount. And so I meant to put these, and I should have changed them on your note guide, but I just don't think you can see like this loss of life if you don't understand the technology that was used or trench warfare. So those are our two bloodiest battles, number 1 and number 2 there. And so you can come back to page 7 because there are other fronts in this war. We've talked about the Western Front. It's the most important front in World War I. It's where most of the stuff is going down, but we do need to talk about the Eastern Front, and we'll talk about a couple other fronts here too that aren't really recognized, but I think I need to mention. So this is going to go pretty quick. Oh, crap. See, I'm like being a bad clicker today. I don't know what it is, or I was being slide happy making and putting just a couple words. But All Quiet on the Western Front is an anti-war book, as I was mentioning before. It is supposed to illustrate the horrors of trench warfare, and I think it does a nice job if you get a chance to read it. It is a very, I'd say, sensible account of World War I and very honest in its account. Okay, so the Eastern Front, page 7, other major theaters of the war. So other places the war is going to be fought is going to be totally different than on the Western Front. We're going to see that, of course, our Eastern Front is going to be turning back, towards Russia. General von Hindenburg and General von Ludendorff are going to be defeated, are going to defeat invading Russian armies at Tannenberg. So this is the Battle of Tannenberg, if you want to write that to the top of Tannenberg. The Russians were winning at first because, remember, the Germans had thought they'd already be done in France, and then they were going to bring their troops into Russia and what they thought defeating Russia. The AP exam doesn't ask you so much individual battles, and I don't spend a lot of time there, but it will ask you about turning points. Tannenberg is a turning point in World War I on the Eastern Front. It turned the tide of the war in the East. Okay, you might want to circle or note that here. It's Russia versus Germany. It's wide open fighting.
So there's no trenches.
No, this is like wide open in the field. This is completely different than the Western Front. What I want you to make a note of here too, Russia isn't just fighting Germany, because we're talking up the Russians today. The Russian Revolution is going on in Russia as well. We're going to stick with some people we're not dissing. They are dealing with the problems at home. And so we're going to see that is going to deal them some issues on the Eastern Front. And so Unit 9.2 next week is the Russian Revolution, so we get to come back to Mr. Nicholas and his family and what's going on with them, and Rasputin, the flashing monk, and all of that fun stuff. So Russians winning at first, but the Battle of Tannenberg is a turning point. Turn the tide of the war in the East. I think I even typed that for you. The Russians are going to, because of the things going on, going to be very poorly organized and suffered horrific casualties at the hands of the Germans. Like Eli said, low on weapons, like 1 per 5 soldiers, okay, because they had not had an industrial revolution fully yet, okay? So that's a big problem. Like, I wouldn't want to be the guy that's like one of the 4 that don't have a gun and are still running into battle. Like, I'm not going to trust that guy to be shooting for me when the Germans have machine guns and all of this other technology. So no good. And so what's going to happen is Russia is going to realize that they are having the only benefit the Allies really have here is that the Ottoman Empire is in, or not the Allies, the Central Powers have a benefit here with the Ottoman Empire. However, the Allies are having trouble getting troops or getting supplies through, and so that's going to hinder Russia. Because, like I said, the Ottoman Empire, really the only thing they provide is a good geographic location. So it's something else you want to note here, because the Ottoman Empire had joined the Central Powers in 1914, and so Russia's also having problems getting supplies. Like, they can't even enlist the help of the French and the British sending guns through because of the Ottoman Empire. And so that's another problem that Russia's facing. And then we're going to see the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, December 1902. Vladimir Lenin has come into power because we're going to come back to the Russian Revolution. So remember, I don't go exactly chronological. I'm going by topic. After the Bolshevik Revolution, we'll take Russia out of the war. but will have to concede quite a bit, okay? So Vladimir Lenin is going to pull Russia out, okay? And the Battle of Tannenberg is the turning point. We're having problems at home in 1917, so he is going to do a separate peace treaty with the Germans, and he's going to be forced to give Germans 1/4 of Russian territory. So he has to give up a lot to pull out of this war. Separate treaty with Germany, with Russia, than we have for the rest of the war. Government changes, like I said, led to it. The Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution had gotten Russia in war, but now Vladimir Lenin is more concerned with the home front than an international war, and we're going to see all of this in Unit 9.2. Okay, so you kind of just need to note that Russia we're going to lose as well here. Let's see. Let's go one more. We're going to go down to the Middle East, and then we're a little bit behind today, but I want to give you some work time like I promised. So the Gallipoli campaign of 1915, the British and Australian forces are going to fail to take the Dardanelles as a step toward taking Constantinople, so we're going to see some failure here on the Eastern Front. Ooh. Right here with the Gallipoli campaign, you can see, here's a zoomed-in map. So here's Constantinople. Here is the Dardanelles in the British attacks, okay? The Aegean Sea, all here zoomed in. Here's the bigger map down there. So we have the Gallipoli campaign in 1915. This is going to really be sucky for the French and British here, is the Gallipoli campaign. In Russia having to have pulled out, is going to have to pull out. So Dardanelles, they fail in taking this as a step towards trying to take Constantinople. They're trying to break through to get to Russia to help because they know that Russia was having problems before Russia pulls out of the war. But they are not able to get there, which is another reason Russia's going to suffer. They don't defeat the Turks. And 200,000 British troops will be killed or wounded, almost 500,000 totaled. The Allies will give up on this mission by 1915. And so I think there's a movie, Mel Gibson, called Gallipoli. So if I'm not much of a Mel Gibson fan, but if you wanted to see a movie about this battling on the Eastern Front and the Dardanelles, it's out there for you. And then we're going to come back to the third front on Friday. That's where we'll start part 3. And our third front is going to be the Middle East. Our fourth front is going to be the ocean. And then we're just going to talk about total war, which you guys are familiar with. That'll be really quick. But I feel like we've been sitting for a long time today, and this is a good stopping point. Are we all in agreement on that? Okay. So let's stop with the Gallipoli campaign. You can mark part 3 is going to start at the Middle East, if you like to keep track of those kind of bookkeeping things. And then our QD for today, if you grab your QD sheet out, we'll go ahead and get out of the way, and the rest of the time shall be yours.
I don't mean to add another country to our bash.
Okay.
But that's really like Central Powers, Germany, Austria, Bulgaria, and
Yes.
so far, the Germans have managed to beat the Russians,
Uh-huh.
hold off a combination of the
British and British.
and the Belgians.
But not being entirely successful. Like, I wouldn't say defeated.
They're not winning.
Yeah.
They haven't lost.
Okay, I'll take that's fair. Mm-hmm.
Right? Meanwhile, the Austrians, Bulgarians, and Ottomans have managed to lose the Gallipoli campaign, right? Because they lose that?
No.
British and Australian.
Yeah, Australia and the British lose.
But they don't do much.
No, they are, like I said, they're going to be the geographic advantage. They're that buffer, like to keep
Sure.
the allies out.
So they just they don't do any, they just defend their own countries?
Yeah, they're
There's
really
no
just
Austrian
concerned with
soldiers.
not turning into France, the lunar landscape. Like, they're just trying to, maintain that. They're having allegiance, and they're going to supply what troops and weapons they can, but the main thing is they're able to be a blockade, really. I mean, they're really going to hurt Russia by keeping... What about Austria? Austria is powerful, yeah. I kind of combine them with Germany when I'm talking about them, because it gets really tiring saying Germany, Austria, Hungary.
But there
Yeah.
are like Austrian, Hungarian troops
Yes.
fighting
Yeah.
in Dasan and Louvain or whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. I was like, Jesus Christ, Germans are just...
No, I just don't have as staggering figures, yeah.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So,
So
yeah,
but the
so-
Austrians are...
Yeah.
pulling-
Austria, Germany, BFF, yeah. BFF got their back. They're still, fairly strong. It wasn't long ago that they were a pretty formidable match for Prussia, until Bismarck and all his savvy. I really like Bismarck. Bless you.
Is Bismarck still? When did Bismarck die?
Bismarck's dead here, I believe. God, I can't remember the exact year. Does anyone want to Google the exact year? He's not there at this time for his own safety. Yeah, 1898, yeah. 1898, yeah. Let's see, Carl, yeah. Yeah, he's here. QD. So QD for today is, what's your favorite topic thus far of World War I? It can be something that you've dissed on today, we've dissed on today. It can be some of you are really into war technology or military technology. Some of you are into battles. Yeah, some of you are just really into not liking the French. What is it? Today's kind of a freebie one. We don't have an essential question that goes along with this. We're going to get our next essential question in part 3, which will be our lecture topic for Friday, because today is Wednesday, and then you'll just go in. Your only thing over the weekend will be words of the week and a Russian review, just because I feel like throwing you right back into Russian history is going to stomp you. And a lot of teachers don't hit Russian history at all before. They do it all with the Russian Revolution. That's really overwhelming, I feel. To go back that far, and then, we stopped at a good point. I mean, Rasputin. Woo-hoo. Yes, sir. I'm pretty sure I do. I hope I didn't take them all. Yes. Ah, there it is.
Of course, I just have to, edit.
Just edit. We're just revising our FRQs right now. 20, each day.